The fifth
Revelation
chapter
9.
And I saw the fifth angel that had sounded his trumpet. And I saw a star that had fallen from the sky to the earth. When he opened, the star was given the key to the shaft of the abyss. When he opened the abyss, smoke rose from it like the smoke from a gigantic furnace. The sun and sky were darkened by the smoke from the abyss, and out of the smoke, locusts came down on the earth. They were told and were given power like that of scorpions of the earth. Any plant or tree. They were told not to harm the grass of the earth or any plant or tree, but only those people who did not have the seal of God on their forehead. For 5, they were not allowed to kill them, but only to torture them. Was like for 5 months of a scorpion, and the agony they suffered was like that of the sting of a scorpion. People will seek death when it strikes, but will not find it. During those days, people will seek death, but will not find it. During those days, people will seek death, but will not find it. They will long to die, like horses, but death will elude them. On their heads, the locusts look like horses, prepared for battle. On their heads, they wore something like crowns of gold, and their faces resemble human faces. The locusts look like horses, prepared for battle. On their heads, they were something like crowns of gold, and their faces resembled human, and their faces were like lions' teeth. Their hair was like women's hair, and their teeth were like lions' teeth. And the sound of they had breastplates was like breastplates of iron, and the sound of their wings was like the thundering of many horses and chariots rushing into battle. They had tails with stingers like scorpions, and in their tails they had power to torment people for 5 months of the abyss. They had as king over them the angel of the abyss, whose name in Hebrew is Abaddon, destroyer, and in Greek is Apollyon. That is a destroyer, angel of the abyss. They had as king over them the angel of the abyss, whose name in Hebrew is Abaddon, and in Greek is Apollyon. That is destroyer. 2 other woes are yet to come. The first woe is past. 2 other woes are yet to come. The first woe is past. 2 other woes are yet to come. Coming from the 6th angel sounded his trumpet, and I heard a voice coming from the 4 horns of the golden altar that is before God. The 4 angels. It said to the 6th angel at the great river who had the trumpet, Euphrates, release the 4 angels who are bound at the great river of Euphrates for this very hour and day, and the 4 angels who have been kept ready for this very hour and day and month and year were released to kill a third of mankind. 10,000 times the number of the mounted troops was twice their 10,000 times 10,000. The horses and riders I heard their number look like this. The horses and riders I saw in my vision look like this. Yellow as sulfur. Their breastplates were fiery red, dark blue, and yellow sulfur. The heads of the horses resembled the heads of lions. And out of the mouths came fire, smoke, and sulfur. A third of mankind was killed. They came out by the 3 plagues, the power of fire, smoke, and sulfur. They came out their mouths. The power of the horses was in their mouths, and in their tails. For their tails was like snakes, having heads, with which they inflict injury. Still did not repent. The rest of mankind who were not killed by these plagues still did not repent of the work of their hands. The rest of mankind who were not killed by these plagues still did not repent of the work of their hands. They did not stop worshiping demons and idols of gold, silver, bronze, stone, and wood, idols that cannot see or hear or walk. Nor did they repent of their murders, their magic arts. Nor did they repent of their murders, immorality, their magic arts, their sexual immorality, or their thefts, their magic arts. Nor did they repent of their murders, their magic arts, the sexual immorality, or their theft.